Good afternoon, everybody. It's Simon here from careermap.co.uk, and welcome to today's session for National Work Experience Week. We're joined by Captain Polly Marsh from the Royal Academy Sandhurst Youth Engagement Team. Are you there, Polly? Can you hear us?
Hello, Simon.
Oh, great, you're there. Okay, but before Polly begins the presentation, I'd just like to say, if you've got any questions throughout Polly's presentation, please put them in the chat facility on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll try and run through as many as we can at the end during the Q&A session. So I'll pass over to you now, Polly, to start the presentation.
Thank you, Simon. The All Blacks rugby team, they are the most successful team of all time. They have a winning percentage of nearly 80%, which is far beyond any team in any sport anywhere in the world. So in the world of sport, they are consistently one of the best teams time and time again. Why is this, do you think? Why are they the best? Why are they consistently one of the top teams in the world? One reason that comes up time and again, cited by a succession of coaches, managers, sports analysts, is this. The All Blacks select for character above talent. That's a pretty important thing. So if you want to be a member of the best team in the world, it is not enough to be a brilliant, talented rugby player. The most important thing about you is your values. So my name's Polly Marsh. I work for the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, which is one of the greatest leadership training academies in the world. They train all the British Army officers and some of the very lucky selected few from other allied nations from around the world. I am not a recruiter for the army, but I truly believe that the values lessons that are taught at Sandhurst will enable every young person to become a valuable, successful member of any organisation or team or family, anywhere. And there are some very simple guidelines about your character and about personal values that will help you to achieve that. So a little bit on me. So I come from a financially poor, you might say underprivileged background. I went to a very low performing state secondary school. There was no careers advice. There was very little aspiration to do anything or go anywhere. In fact, I was the only person in my entire original year group of 250 students. I was the only one who went to university. But due to having some very strong personal values, it meant I pursued activities that made me happy and made me proud. And as a result, I ended up going to Sandhurst and becoming an officer in the British Army. I stayed for 8 years and then I left because I was getting married. And in those days, you couldn't do both, although you can now. I have had a successful civilian career. I own my own international business. I advise many others. I've got lots of voluntary roles. I sit on the board of 3 major charities. 3 years ago, I was asked to rejoin the Army Reserves and work for the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst and to talk to young people like yourselves and their gatekeepers, which means your teachers, parents, other youth group leaders, about Sandhurst and the leadership, values-based leadership that is taught there. So by the end of this talk, I hope you will have some tools that will help you to think about your own values. In other words, what makes you, you, what drives you to action. And I want you to have confidence in your values and have confidence in yourself and your decisions as you go through your education and the rest of your life. Excuse me if I'm a bit clunky with the presentation. It's new. Here we go. Okay. So that is there. That is the cap badge for the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. And you can see underneath there, it says serve to lead. That is the motto for the Sandhurst Academy. So it's a bit of an oxymoron, and people are often unsure about what that means. You're a leader, but you're also a servant. What does serve to lead mean? Well, it's telling you the type of leadership that is taught at Sandhurst. So values-based leadership is servant-led. Okay, it basically means our role as leaders is to serve our soldiers who work for us. Okay, we empower our soldiers and support them every step of the way. They are our #1 priority. We help them to become the best that they can be as individuals. We help them to become the best they can be as a team. And we help them to create teams with common goals who ultimately get the task done, whatever it might be that we're told to do. It is absolutely not about dictating things and people doing things because you tell them to. Okay, as a leader, it is important that you empower the people who you are leading. Hence, serve to lead. So I'm going to show you a little video now. I will mute my microphone just to give you a bit of a feeling for what Sandhurst is and what goes on there.
Do you want some help with the video, Polly? Do you want me to play it? You're on mute, Polly. Do you want me to press play?
Giving and receiving orders.
It's halfway through on my screen. It's playing.
I think that's just for you. Do you want me to start it?
Yes, please. Apologies, everybody.
1 second. We'll turn our mics off.
You walk through the gates and you can sense the history.
It's challenging, it's quite intimidating at times, but it's very inspiring and also actually quite good fun.
Ultimately, it's a fantastic opportunity.
There's physical training, there's leadership training, learning about the system of planning operations and giving and receiving orders.
Timely decision-making, problem-solving techniques, some good teamwork, discipline, and most importantly, probably the confidence.
One of the biggest things I've learnt so far in the course is how to perform.
You will have been selected to come here for training, and our policy is to train in, not to select out.
Just try and do your best and you'll almost certainly come out of it a better person.
Okay, thanks, Simon, for playing that. I think you should do the second one as well.
I will. Do you want me to start the presentation again?
Are we back in?
1 sec. It's just coming back on the screen now.
Okay. Okay, so that's a little bit about Sandhurst. Just to give you the full picture. So the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst has 2 colleges. Old College, which is the white building which you saw in the first slide and is the one behind me. That's not my house. And there is a second building, an equally impressive red brick building to the right of that building in the slide behind me, called New College. Brilliantly imaginative names. And it's a year-long course, leadership training course, broken down into 3 terms in much the same way as school is. And you are taught all aspects of leadership, so from individual leadership, team leadership, to more strategic, tactical, and sort of overall task management. And anybody can apply to go. It has got absolutely nothing to do with your background, your culture, your ethnicity, your gender, any sexuality, financial reasons, any school you went to. It matters not one jot. All that matters is that you've got some half decent A levels and your character. Okay. And as they said in that video, it is a course where you are trained in, not selected out. So if you pass the selection to go, it means that you have the potential to pass. Okay. So that's a little bit about Sandhurst itself. So leadership, we shall move on to leadership. What is leadership? If I was there in person and speaking to you face to face, I would now be having a conversation with you, getting your ideas on what you believe leadership to be. Because if you ask 10 different people, you will get 10 different answers. This is the British Army's definition of leadership. I will read it out. Leadership is that combination of character, knowledge, and action that inspires others to succeed. So in other words, it is what leaders are, their character, what they know, their knowledge, what they do, their action, and how they do it. So how do they inspire other people? And those things are part of what we call the Army Leadership Doctrine, what leaders are, what they know, what they do, and how they do it. And here is a slide of the leadership framework, which down the left-hand side there, you can see exactly those 4 things that I've just read out to you. And the Army Leadership Framework is part of the Army Leadership Doctrine, which is straight from the Centre for Army Leadership, which funnily enough is based right here at Sandhurst. So they write the Army Leadership Doctrine, and this comes straight from the horse's mouth. And that little picture there is a fantastic slide because it is so simple, and that incorporates everything in one image. So it's a really common anchor point for absolutely everybody in the Army, all the leaders in the organisation. They can all see the same thing. They all understand where their place is, where do they fit in, and what is expected of them. So it's simple. We love simple in the Army. Practical. It is proven to work, and it is accessible to all. So what leaders are, what they know, what they do, and how leaders do it. What leaders are is obviously their character, and part of that is their values. And that is the majority of what we're going to go through today. The rest of it, it would take so long to go through the whole Army Leadership Doctrine piece by piece. So we will focus on what leaders are, and I'll briefly go through the rest of it. And then if we have time, I'll also give you a bit more at the end. So that's what we're going to cover. So what I want you to do now is have a think about who are your great leaders. Who in your life have you met or seen on the telly or on social media that you believe to be the best leaders that you know? And they don't have to be famous people. They could be your teachers, they could be your parents, sports coaches in your local team, anybody who inspires you into action is a great leader for you. So basically have a think about who your great leaders are, but more importantly, why Why do they inspire you? What is it about them? What are their values? What are their characteristics that inspires you? I'm going to now go through a couple of examples. So I'm not going to use military examples. So here we have Barack and Michelle Obama. As I'm sure you're all aware, Barack Obama was the president of the United States a while ago now. So why has he been successful? So just to give you a little bit of background on Barack Obama. So he was born into a single family. His parents split up when he was quite young. He was passed around between lots of different members of his family. He ended up living with an aunt in Hawaii. And Hawaii, I've never been, but apparently is absolutely multicultural and has all different types of people with different types of opinions and different types of belief. And it is a very respectful culture. Everybody is different and everybody is respected for their differences. So that's what the sort of background that he grew up in. Michelle Obama, so she is from the south side of Chicago in America, from a traditional family. And by that, I mean, a mum stayed at home and her dad went out to work. The family all stayed at home together. But she was very bright. She did extremely well at school. She went off to university. She faced an awful lot of racial and gender discrimination. But Michelle used it to fuel her ambition and drive her to greater success. Her father also had MS, which had a big impact on her, and it made her want to be determined and strive to become successful in whatever career she went into. She's a lawyer now, for the benefit of her family and to be able to look after her family. So you can see there, both of these people have great loyalty to their backgrounds. They're both pretty smart people. They're both determined and courageous people with great empathy and compassion for other people. So those are the sorts of values that Barack and Michelle Obama both have. Who else have we got? Marcus Rashford. So I'm sure all of you there know exactly who he is. So Marcus Rashford's background then, again, he was born into a single family. It's just him and his brother. His mother had to work 2 jobs in order to pay the bills to keep the family together. She also used to go without food herself on many occasions that he remembers in order for Marcus and his brother to have enough to eat. So very hardworking mum, a very selfless mum. And of course, when he became a brilliant footballer and became famous for his football and earned a lot of money, he did not forget his background. Very loyal person. So at the start of lockdown, as you may recall, all schools closed due to COVID. Everybody went home. And all those children who were on free school meals, of which there are more than 20% of students in an average school are on free school meals, which is a lot. So he realised that all these young people were not getting their usual free meal, which is one of the very important meals of their day. And he campaigned and ultimately got the government to review that decision, and all children during lockdown ended up getting vouchers and getting their free school meal every day. So very loyal, passionate man, brilliant moral values, and empathetic. And because he completely understood what was going on in those family situations, he stood up to the government, and he won. So there's a brilliant leader. Another leader then, different types altogether, Richard Branson. He was born into a relatively privileged background, middle class, went to a private school, but he faced different challenges in his life. So he struggled really badly at school. Richard Branson is dyslexic and dyspraxic. So he found reading, writing, numbers, all very difficult. So how did he adapt and overcome and become so successful? He's entrepreneurial, he's opportunistic, he's not afraid of failure, which is a really good characteristic to have. At 16 years old, he started his first business. It was absolutely rubbish and failed. He started his second business. It was also rubbish and failed. And a third, he kept going. So every time he failed, he learned a lesson from that failure and went on to add it to his list and learn from those very valuable lessons. So he would believe there is nothing wrong with making mistakes, and I absolutely agree. But so long as you don't make the same mistake over and over again, because mistakes are learning opportunities. That is a very humble thing to be able to say. So he's opportunistic, he's flexible, he's humble, and he's happy to make mistakes and learn from them. So I think that's an important lesson. So who is next? Excuse me. Okay, one more then. Greta Toonberg. And I'm sure, again, you've all heard of Greta Toonberg, the young girl who started a global environmental movement. She, again, was born into a relatively middle-class family, went to a private school, but she had other challenges. She has Asperger's syndrome. She also has selective mutism. She only speaks when she is, when she believes so passionately and about what she's saying. And obviously the environment and the climate is her passion. These are the things that cause her to act, her values and her passions. She also struggles with depression. So there's an awful lot going on there. So for somebody as a young girl to start a global movement and now has, you know, there's all sorts of people all over the world following her. She has led by example all the way. And the persuasion, the passionate way she speaks, how brave and how resilient and determined she is, I think is a real inspiration. So Greta Toonberg, a great leader. What I want now, sorry, wrong computer. So those are the sort of characteristics of some great leaders in the world. Everybody starts, nobody's born a great leader. People start with who you are. So you have to now think, what is your superpower? What are your values? What are the things that drive you to action? What are the things that make you happy? And what are the things that make you proud? So there's an app called What 3 Words, which I quite liked. What I want, if I was there again in front of you, I would be asking you now to all think about 3 words that describe you. What are those 3 words? All positive words. Don't think of any negative words, but later on, maybe later today or over the weekend, have a sit down and seriously think about what 3 words describe you. Or you can ask a friend to choose 3 words to describe you, or 6 words to describe you, and vice versa. Be kind and choose positive words, but be honest, you know, because you will have some really fantastic qualities, and it's good for you to know what your good qualities are, and good for you to know what your values are, the things that you're passionate about. So those are the sorts of values and characteristics of all different types of people, and everybody will be different, and you are unique and you will have your own. What I'm also going to go into now is to talk about the Army's values, because the Army's values align very closely with my personal values, and you may find that they're useful to you. If you can find an organisation in the future to work for where their company values or organisational values align with your personal values, I guarantee you will be very happy working for that organisation. And that's what happened to me. So, Army values. Any of you out there who are cadets will know these 6 values of the British Army, because they're exactly the same as the Cadet Force values. C drills is the acronym that we use to remember the 6 values. And as you can see, courage, discipline, respect for others, integrity, loyalty, and selfless commitment. For selfless commitment, I would insert selflessness at this point in your life, because this is obviously something to do with the military, whereas selflessness is for everybody. Okay, so what do they mean? You know, courage, we're not just talking about physical courage, bravery to do something, whether it's a military thing or whether it's something, I don't know, an adventure training, abseiling, that's pretty courageous, bungee jumping, jumping out of a plane with a parachute, they're all pretty courageous things. They're physical courage. But I'm also talking about moral courage. Moral courage is far more of a daily thing, which you will see and need to have every single day. Doing the right thing, even though it might be unpopular, or standing up to bullies in the playground, for example, having that moral courage. D is for discipline. Again, I'm not talking necessarily about having discipline because you fear of being punished if you don't do something that your parents tell you to do, or your teachers tell you to do, or the rules of the game, whatever. It's not about the fear of punishment. I'm talking about personal discipline. Having the discipline for yourself to turn up at the right place, at the right time, with the right equipment, to be responsible, to be reliable, you know, to do your homework on time. That sort of thing is disciplined behaviour. And it is a very important thing in my view. So respect for others. Obviously, everybody knows how to respect all different types of people from all different types of background, but it is really, really important when it comes to leadership and teamwork. So if we consider the All Blacks again, or a football team perhaps, if you had 11 people who were all exactly the same on your football team, all strikers, I mean, that's going to be a fairly useless football team. They could be the best strikers individually in the world, but they're not going to make a great team, because in a team, you need a mix of everybody. You need the goalie, you need the midfielders, and you need the attackers, and you need the left wings and the right wings, and you need who is best at their jobs in their own positions. And everybody should respect everybody else's position. And that goes for all types of teams in all different organisations. So different languages, different backgrounds, different experiences, all different things about people are really valuable. The more diverse a team, the stronger the team, and the more capable it's going to be to achieve whatever the given task is. So it's really important. Integrity. Integrity, I often ask if you even know what that means. And I mean that to adults as well as young people, because integrity is one of those sort of funny things that you're not quite sure what integrity means. But to me, it means being honest and doing the right thing. Okay, so telling the truth, doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, not letting people down. That's integrity, so that people can absolutely rely on you to be honest and do the right thing. Loyalty again to your family, to your team, to your friend who's sitting next to you, and being proud of that team. So being proud of partaking in a group or a team of anything will breed loyalty to that team. And there's lots of different emblems and ways that people try and strengthen that. You know, in the army, for example, we all have different coloured berets depending on which regiment or corps we're in, and so different types, obviously team strips, football, again, you'll have different colours for different teams. It breeds loyalty and it makes a team succeed even more than if they didn't have loyalty. And the last one then, selfless commitment. Selflessness, pretty standard, putting other people before yourself. So in the army, for example, being selfless, everybody goes before the officers. The soldiers would go before them in the lunch queue. We would do everything for the benefit of the soldiers, and we would put them first in every instance. So being a leader is not about making yourself look good. It's about making the people who you're leading look good. So if you can do the best for them and make them the best that they can be, make them look good, prioritize them, that is being a leader. Again, we go back to serve, to lead. And the last thing about what leaders are, just as a bit of an overview, there are three things that I think of as for a leader. Ultimately, what are they? One is a role model. So with values, and we're looking at those values there in the army, as an officer in the British Army, I have to live and breathe those values every single day of my life in everything I do, 24/7. It is not something that gets switched off when I'm off duty. It is something that they are instilled in me, and I live by them, I breathe them, and that is who I am. And it becomes a habit, and it becomes the person that you are. And whatever your values, we're going back to the values that you might have picked, or you might pick a bit later on, whatever they are, if you live and breathe them, they become part of your nature. And if they're part of your nature, they will be instinctive. So that's a really important point. And you'll be the role model that everybody looks up to, because you're living and breathing and setting that example. But you are also custodians of those values. So in the army, everybody has those values, and I, as an officer, have to be the custodian of those values. So if I see somebody who is not respecting somebody else, or is being selfish, or is lack of discipline, I have to pick them up on that, because that is the standard you walk past, is the standard you accept, is something that we think about. And discipline, as I say, isn't fear of being punished, but if you're consistent and those habits are building up and they're excellent and they're instilled in you, it means that trust and respect is being shown. So it's what would be a fear of not doing the right thing should be a willing obedience, because we are the custodians. So I have to make sure that people are sticking to those values, because they're important. And it is a galvanizing force if everybody has got the same values. So it's important that I make sure people stick to them. So we're role models, we're custodians. And the last thing we are, in my view, and it doesn't always come up, and if you go back to that slide of the leadership doctrine, it didn't have this on there. I believe you have to be a bit of a parent figure, because as leaders, we are responsible for the people that we're leading. We're in charge of their physical well-being, their mental well-being, and their personal development. We are much more than just a concerned manager, let's say. We are trying to help navigate people through their personal difficulties. As a young officer, you find yourself a lawyer, a financial advisor, a family counsellor, and a friend, even to people who've been in the army for 20 years, which, you know, when you first join, you're in charge as an officer, a very young officer. And so it's hard to sort of become that parent figure, but that's really what you're doing. You're looking after your men or your soldiers, your women in your troop. So those are the three things as an officer or as a leader in any organisation, I believe you need to be. You need to be a role model, you need to be the custodian of those values, and you need to be a bit of a parent figure. And obviously those are the values that I believe you need to have as a leader in any organisation. They're a very good set of values. So those are the what is a leader, what a leaders are. We're going to very briefly talk about what leaders know and do. So I haven't even got a slide on what leaders know. So what leaders know is pretty common sense. They know themselves, they know their own strengths and weaknesses, they know their team, they know their strengths and weaknesses, what makes them tick, what drives them to action. They know what their own profession. So you have to be professionally competent. You've got that knowledge. And as time goes on, you also have that experience and you can make good decisions and you become good communicators. So that's a sort of very quick overview of what leaders know and what leaders do. This slide here, again, taken from the Army Leadership Doctrine, the Army Leadership Model, what leaders do. So those 3 circles that you can see there are the 3 things that leaders do. So they develop individuals, they build teams, and ultimately they achieve the task. And those 3 things can flex depending on the circumstances at the time. So what will be taking priority, let's say in the heat of battle, will be achieving the task. And the people, individuals, and the teams, individuals won't matter so much because they'll just have to do what needs to be done. But when you're back in barracks, potentially, you are then having to readdress that balance. And you have to take greater care of your teams and you have to take greater care of your individuals, and the task is less important. So you can understand that given the context, those 3 different things that the leaders have to do can adapt and change. But overall, those 3 things have to all happen. And that's all about being a leader and what leaders have to do. And the last one then, just one slide on how leaders do it. So here's a really good acronym. Again, if you have been in the cadet force, you might recognize this, how leaders do it. L for lead by example, E for encourage thinking, apply reward and discipline, demand high performance, encourage confidence in the team, recognize individual strengths and weaknesses, and strive for team goals. So what do they all mean? Very briefly, we'll go through. So lead by example, we have spoken about. Encourage thinking. Encourage thinking, we have something in the military called mission command, and I'll explain that briefly in a second. But if you encourage other people to think for themselves, it demonstrates respect that you have for them, which generates trust and it builds confidence for them as well. And it also builds loyalty in that whole team. Applying reward and discipline, we briefly spoke about how you're the custodian of the values. So you have to apply reward and counterwise you have to apply discipline. Demanding high performance shows trust in the team. If you set them high standards, then you believe that they can do it and they will believe that they can do it too. So you have to support and encourage, but basically you believe in high standards and believe that your team can achieve high performance. And encourage confidence in the team. As I say, shout about success stories. You know, if your team has won, be proud, be loyal to them, be proud of them, shout about it, tell everybody, make sure that everybody on your team knows how proud you are of them, because once again, that will build confidence. Recognizing individual strengths and weaknesses. Again, diversity is the key to a great team. We've spoken about that. And then last 2 there, recognise individual strengths. Strive for team goals being the last one. Team goals, everybody striving for the same goal, everybody being loyal, but all those different skill sets, different approaches, that will make a much more successful team. So the team goal, very important. Everybody's got different skills, but everybody's aiming for the same end point. Here it is, a great famous quote by Field Marshal Slim. Again, talking about your individuality as leaders. So leadership is the mixture of example, persuasion, and compulsion, which makes men and women do what you want them to do. I would say that it is a projection of personality. It is the most personal thing in the world because it's just plain you. And that's why it's so important for you to go away after this and really think about your values and what makes you tick, what is important to you, what drives you to action. So I'm not sure exactly what age you are, but I know you're all at secondary school. You are at a very exciting stage in your journey through education and ultimately onto a career. And after this talk, I would like you to go home, and instead of saying to yourself or thinking or asking yourself, what do I want to be when I grow up or when I have a career? I want you to think, who do you want to be? Because that is a much more important question, and it incorporates your character and your values, and it starts now. The sooner you know who you are and start building that confidence in yourself and who you are, the better. Remember, we spoke about the best teams in the world selecting for character over talent. And likewise, the Army, the Navy, the RAF, civilian organisations like the NHS, education department, other major employees, they all have very similar values about, you know, those sea drills that I talked to you about. They might be worded slightly differently, but they're all very similar. And being a leader and being a team player is way more important than being an individually talented person. Okay, so do find out what your values are. Know yourself, become self-aware, know what's important to you. And ultimately, if you live and breathe by your values, you will become respected and trusted, and you will be seen to be living your values every day, and you're being true to yourself and who you are. And that will build confidence in you from other people and also from yourself. And as time goes on, life changes, situations change, things happen. Many of them will be unexpected. So having that set of core values that you live by every day, that becomes inherent in you and a habit that you can hold on to, you can rely on that in times of change, especially in times of crises, that will give you the support and the confidence that you need to make good decisions. And ultimately, you will be a person that everybody trusts, everybody knows they can rely on, everybody wants you as part of their team, and that is the sign of an excellent leader. So, I love this quote. Life just gives you time and space, and it's up to you how you fill it up. So think about it. What makes you happy? What makes you proud? Spend your time like you would spend your money. Only spend it on things that are important to you, okay? Ask yourself who you want to be, not what you want to be. And that is the end of the presentation on values. So I will take questions. And if there is if there aren't any questions, I can show you a quick little video about Officer Training Corps, but otherwise I will just take questions.
Thanks, Polly. Yeah, there's absolutely tons of questions, so
Okay.
thanks for that one. Yeah, I'll start from the bottom and work my way up. So, question from Peter to start with says, "Hi, Polly. Did you always want to work in the army?"
Peter, you know, I mentioned I went to a pretty rubbish school. I didn't even know the army existed. That's dead true. I went to university, and it was the very first time when I even realised there was something called the Officers Training Corps. It's basically a club at university that's sponsored by the military, and you do military training, much like the cadet force, but for students at uni. And that's when I found out about the army. I felt very like a fish out of water before that. And then when I joined the Officer Training Corps, I felt like everybody I knew was just like me. I really found my home, or my tribe, as people like to say. And I felt like I really belonged. And so from that very moment, I knew instantly. But right up until then, I didn't even know it existed. And that's partly why I do what I do now, is to make sure that all young people do know about the military as an option, because actually it's important. Even if you don't join, you should know.
Thanks, Polly. Tim says, "Can you give any advice for someone who isn't sure what career path they want to go down?"
Okay, Tim. So I've got a 17-year-old daughter who's in that boat. She has absolutely no idea what she wants to do. And I know I'm biased, but I would suggest that doing a short service or even just 1 year, because you can just do 1 year as a gap year in the military, would be an excellent thing to do if you don't know what you want to do. Even after you've done a degree, perhaps, you know, there are still people that still don't know what they want to do. And whilst you're deciding, you may as well do something that is going to develop you as an individual, but also look amazing on your CV, so that when you've decided what you want to do, let's say after a gap year in the army, you will have something on your CV that's hugely respected, and will be a real credit to you. But I'm biased.
Great one. Dean says, can you tell me about what planning skills that have developed at Sandhurst, and are these transferable skills?
What planning skills?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously part of leadership training is learning how to plan. And so all of that is taught at Sandhurst, and absolutely all of it is transferable into civilian life. You know, you only have to look at leaders in many civilian organisations to work out that many of them are ex-forces of one description or another. And that's because they've gone to, in the Army's case, Sandhurst, but obviously there's leadership colleges for the Navy and the RAF. We all learn how to plan, and especially crises management, especially like something like the NHS, for example, which has just gone through a huge crisis. A lot of their top managers will be ex-military because they all know how to plan in a crisis.
Isn't there something called, is it the 6 or 7 Ps in the army, something like that, about planning, performance, that sort of stuff? Prior
preparation and planning prevents, and then I can't say that word, poor performance.
Something like that, yeah. So you learn a lot about planning, I'm sure. Yeah. So yeah, okay. Obviously, this is National Work Experience Week. Mm-hmm. Are the Army offering actual work experience opportunities at the moment for school pupils? Or obviously COVID's had a massive impact on everything over the last few years, but is there something in the pipeline to come back to sort of face-to-face work experience, anything like that?
Yeah, so obviously I'm sitting here talking to you about Sandhurst, and I'm from Sandhurst, and Sandhurst used to do sort of teamwork and leadership days at the academy, right there on that lawn that you can see, actually. And that got cancelled during COVID. But they weren't really work experience. For proper work experience, you would go out to the regiments and the corps. What people don't know all the time about the Army is that only 30% of the roles in the Army are to do with combat. You know, the other 70% of jobs in the military or in the Army are regular jobs that you would all know: teachers, dentists, doctors, engineers, tech people, science people, biology, nurses, you know, etc., etc. Any career that you can think of probably is available in the Army. And they all have their own different regiments and corps. And they do sessions on experience, not necessarily work experience, but they'll all have open days, or they'll at least do something online. I would advise that you have a look at the Army website, which is enormous. And so if you go to the Army website and just plug in whatever it is that you're interested in, whether it might be medical or they do dog training, they have vets, they have all sorts of different careers. Just plug in Army careers, have a look, and then they should come up with links. You have to work your way through the site with links to what is available and where.
Okay, thanks, Polly. Someone's asked about age. What are the sort of entry points to the Army at different age levels? Obviously, you can join at maybe 16 as a sort of general soldier, and you can join as an officer. How does that work? Okay, so
I'm, as I say, I'm not a recruiter, so I don't know all the answers to these questions, but they're all good questions. I just want you to be aware that I might get it a little bit wrong, so check the websites. But essentially, there's officers and there's soldiers. And soldiers can join at a young age, go to a place called Harrogate, and there is a difference between where they go exactly between the ages of 16 and 18, and then once they're an adult, where they go. But they all go through soldier training, and obviously there's different types of soldiers. There's the sort of combat soldiers, and then you've got your engineers, you've got artillery, and different types of specialist training. Nearly all soldiers will go through specialist training and get specialist qualifications. So we call all of our soldiers will go through one route or another and become absolutely fantastic at what it is that they've trained to be. An officer is a bit like a general manager. We don't get trained in one specific skill or engineering, let's say. We're the managers, so we can transfer ourselves around, and we're looking after teams of people. And that's the Sandhurst route. And you can go to Sandhurst from 18 after you've got your A levels. And I think you have to be, I think it's something like 34 years old is the top end. But again, I would point you to the Army website, and you will find all the information about how to join as a soldier and how to join as an officer.
Thanks, Polly. Anesu and a couple of other people have asked questions about you specifically. So what's the biggest mission you've been on? Have you travelled much with the Army?
So I would have spent my life in the Army had I been probably joined at a different time. I unfortunately, when I was in, I was in that age group where I was joining. I had to really leave when I was getting married because I was emigrating to America. So I haven't done anything nearly very exciting in terms of travel, although I have been on lots of adventure training and expeditions with the Army, which is another thing, which is a big bonus. If you're enjoying adventure training and if you enjoy expeditioning, then the military of any description is the place for you, because you won't get to do all of that in most civilian jobs. However, I did train in bomb disposal. That was quite entertaining. That was my first foray into reserve life. My first job, I was a bomb disposal officer, so that was quite exciting.
Excellent. Kim says, this is an interesting question. How can she assess her current skill set best?
Wow. How can you assess your current skill set? Well, I'm sure if you haven't really sat down and thought about and been honest with yourself about what you're good at, and equally what you're not so good at, you could start by asking people who you trust. Because having really good, honest conversations with people about your strengths and weaknesses is a place to start. They might surprise you and say all sorts of things that you would never have thought of, or maybe been afraid to think of, and I think it will definitely start the ball rolling. If you've got some people that you trust, that to have a really honest conversation, that's where I would start.
Yeah, great answer. Thanks, Polly. Noran says, can you be in the Army but stay in the UK?
You can't dictate that, obviously. You get sent where you get sent. The government of the day decides where you get sent. You have to join and go where you're posted, but that's what you sign up for. But believe me, as a young person, there is, I believe, nothing more exciting than your family is your friends and colleagues around you, so you generally don't miss people.
Brilliant, thank you. Cherise says, again, another interesting question. How has the Army changed you as a person?
I'm not sure the Army has changed me. I just think that I was a person who felt outside of everything when I wasn't in the Army. Certainly when I was at school, in the sort of environment where I grew up in, having some ambition and enjoying challenge and enjoying adventure and wanting to succeed were all things that I didn't really encounter in other people, sadly. And it was only when I joined the OTC, which is as I say, Army training for university students, where I really came into my own, and it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life, because suddenly, instead of thinking there wasn't anybody else like me around. I found myself surrounded by people like me, and doing the things I wanted to do, and having the same values as me. And that it absolutely changed my life, which is why, as I say, I'm very passionate about making sure that people understand that you know, who you are is an important thing to find out, so that you can align your own values with whatever it is you want to end up, you know, whatever organization you might end up working for. If you end up working for an organization, you might be, one of your values might be being on your own. You know, you might not want to be anywhere near anybody. You might be an artist and live on top of a mountain somewhere. So yeah, that's why you should find out who you are.
Thanks, Polly. Mohammed says, what advice would you give to me as I want to join the army? Do I need to do the cadets, or can I get in without this?
Yeah, you don't need to do cadets. Obviously, it just again gives you, would it give you a head start? It gives you knowledge, you know. Certainly when I was at Sandhurst, there were people there who had absolutely no idea how to even iron a pair of trousers, which is the sort of, you know, the basic training sort of level, who really had no idea about the army, had never heard of the army, didn't know anybody in it. So there were people who started from absolute scratch. There were also people who had been in the cadets since they were 12 years old, and they've got 10 years sort of head start on certain things. But at the end of the day, it's all about your character and values. You know, if you've got what it takes, and the people who are doing the selection for Sandhurst, or for if you're going into the soldier side, they will see you and see your potential. And that's all about your character and values, and they can't change that. And it doesn't matter whether you were in the cadets before or not.
Thanks, Polly. And yeah, like if you don't want to maybe join the army full time, there's also the reserves, isn't there, Polly?
Absolutely. I'm back in the reserves. I started off in the reserves and had the regular bit in the middle. So it's a bit backwards, but it's much more flexible now. And as I say, there's all different types of things. There's something called a gap year commission, so you can join for a year, and if you like it, then you can stay. There is, you know, reserves. So a reserve course at Sandhurst, for example, is 8 weeks long instead of being a year. And then there's the full commissioning course, which is a year. And then equally, although I don't know the specifics, there will be similar for soldiers. You know, you can join as a reserve or a regular.
Thanks, Polly. Well, we'll come to the end of the session. Is there any sort of parting words you want to leave the attendees today?
No, I think, you know, what I basically said at the end of the presentation, I think it's really important for young people to find out who they are. So really sit down and think about what makes you tick, what makes you happy, what makes you proud, what drives you to action. Those are the three questions that I would ask myself if I was trying to work out what my values are. And also, once you do know what they are, live them every day. You know, live by them every day, because they will become a habit. People will look at you and they will learn that you are trustworthy, reliable, and that really is halfway there to getting you to understand good leadership and becoming a good leader.
Thanks, Polly. And if anyone's not had the question answered today, where should we go?
Well, you can give out my email address if you want, Simon. Or how do you do it? I'm not really sure, but I guess there's a Facebook on yours, and there's you know, have a look on the Army website. It's massive. It literally answers nearly everything. So, and if you really can't find anything, then obviously you can email me, and that's fine. I don't know if you want to give that out, Simon, or how you do it. Sorry.
Yeah, well, we'll send a follow-up email to all the attendees. So if there's any content you want to put in there, Polly, we can do that for you. I suppose people can obviously visit their recruiting office if they've got one local in their town as well, and speak directly to people there. And just to say, the session today is being recorded, and we'll put it on the on-demand section of the National Work Experience website, so people can come back and refer to it anytime they want. And just to say, we've got one more session left for National Work Experience today, and that's with Coca-Cola. So that's at 3 p.m. today. So if you want to come and join that session, you're more than welcome. Big thank you to the Army and Polly, and we will say goodbye. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.